level island stretched flat across the harbor. Here we landed, and surely a god steered us in through the pitch-black night. Not that he ever showed himself. With thick fog swirling around the ships, the moon wrapped in clouds, and not a glimmer stealing through that gloom. Not one of us glimpsed the island or the long combers rolling us slowly toward the coast. Not till our ships had run their keels ashore. When young dawn with her rose-red fingers shone, we all turned out, intrigued to tour the island. We spied a cavern just at the shore, gaping above the surf, towering, overgrown with laurel. I picked out my dozen finest fighters, and we quickly made our way to the cave. But we failed to find our host inside, so we explored his den. The racks loaded with drying cheeses, the folds crowded with young lambs and kids. We built a fire, set our hands on the cheeses, offered some to the gods, and ate the bulk ourselves, and settled down inside, awaiting his return. Back he came from the pasture, late in the day, herding his flocks home. To close his door, he hoisted overhead a tremendous, massive slab, and down he squatted to milk his sheep and bleating goats. As soon as he'd briskly finished all his chores, he lit his fire and spied us in the blaze. "Strangers," he thundered out, "now who are you? Sea wolves raiding at will, who risk their lives to plunder other men?" I found the nerve to answer firmly. "Men of Achaea we are, and bound now from Troy. We're at your knees in hopes of a warm welcome. Zeus of the strangers guards all guests and suppliants." "Stranger," he grumbled back from his brutal heart, "you must be a fool, stranger, telling me to fear the gods or avoid their wrath." Lurching up, he lunged out with his hands toward my men and snatched two at once. Wrapping them on the ground, he knocked them dead like pups. Their brains gushed out all over, soaked the floor. And ripping them limb from limb, he fixed his meal and bolted them down, devouring entrails, flesh and bones, marrow and all. We flung our arms to Zeus. We wept and cried aloud, looking on at his grisly work. Once the Cyclops had stuffed his enormous gut with human flesh, he slept in his cave. And I, with my fighting heart, I thought at first to steal upon him and stab his chest. But how could we? With our bare hands heave back the slab he set to block his cavern's gaping maw. So we lay there groaning, waiting dawn's first light. When young dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, the monster relit his fire and milked his handsome ewes. And as soon as he'd finished, he snatched up two more men and fixed his meal. Well fed, he drove his fat sheep from the cave, lightly lifting the huge door slab up and away, then slipped it back in place. Inside, I brooded on revenge. Here was the plan that struck my mind as best. The Cyclops' great club. We judged it big enough to be the mast of a pitch-black ship with her 20 oars. I chopped off a fathom's length, and my comrades made the club smooth as I bent and shaved the tip to a stabbing point. I turned it over the blazing fire to char it good and hard, then hid it well, buried deep under the dung that littered the cavern's floor. Nightfall brought the Cyclops back, herding his woolly sheep, and he quickly drove the sleek flock into the vaulted cavern, rams and all. Then he hoisted the huge slab to block the door, and squatted to milk his sheep and bleating goats. And as soon as he'd finished his chores, he snatched up two more men and fixed his meal. But this time I lifted the carved wooden bowl, brimful of my ruddy wine, and went right up to the Cyclops, enticing. "Here, Cyclops, try this wine, to top off the banquet of human flesh you've bolted down. Judge for yourself what stock our ship has stored. He drank, and the heady wine pleased him immensely. After 3 bowls, he toppled over, sprawled full length, flat on his back, his massive neck slumping to one side. Now, at last, I thrust our steak in a bed of embers to get it red hot, and dragged it from the flames. My men clustered around as some god breathed enormous courage through us all. Hoisting high that stake with its stabbing point, straight into the monster's eye they rammed it hard till blood came boiling up around that smoking shaft, singed his brow and eyelids round the core, and the broiling eyeball burst. He loosed a hideous roar, the rock walls echoed, and we scuttled back in terror. The monster wrenched the spike from his eye, and out it came with a red geyser of blood. He groped around for the huge slab, and heaving it from the doorway, down he sat in the cave's mouth, his arms spread wide, hoping to catch a comrade stealing out with sheep. What was the best way out? As the rams went rumbling out of the cave towards the pasture, I lashed his rams 3 abreast to bear each man underneath them. The Cyclops, heaving in torment, felt the back of each animal halting before him here. But the idiot never sensed my men were trussed up under their thick, fleecy ribs. As soon as we got past the cave, I loosed myself, then loosed my men. We drove the flock straight to the ship, and a welcome sight we were to loyal comrades. Once offshore, as far as man's shout can carry, I called back to the Cyclops, stinging taunts. So, Cyclops, your filthy crimes came down on your own head. So Zeus and the other gods have paid you back. He bellowed out to Lord Poseidon, thrusting his arms to the starry skies, and prayed, "Hear me, Poseidon, god of the sea-blue mane, who rocks the earth. If I really am your son, and you claim to be my father, come, grant that this man never reaches home. Or if he's fated to see his people once again and reach his native country, let him come home late and come a broken man, and let him find a world of pain at home." So he prayed, and the god of the sea-blue mane, Poseidon, heard his prayer.
That was awesome.
Didn't break it?
No.
It was weird, but that was awesome. Yeah, well, I hope you learned something from that, as far as being able to put something together, as far as production. And working as a team, which you guys did awesome. Yeah. Everybody passes.